It's starting. Wait a sec. Welcome back to Worldviews. We have a special guest with us, a an expert from the Warsaw Institute who specializes in international affairs, Central Europe, the Central European region, transatlantic relations, and the European Union. We're going to get into all of that with Szymon Polewka. Szymon, thank you very much for joining me on my channel today.
Okay, I also would like to sincerely thank you for inviting me to your podcast.
Pleasure. Let's get straight to the chase. The top issue, I guess, is Poland and the EU presidency. What are the priorities for Poland in the next few months? Poland is, of course, a very key player in the European Union. Uh, Poland has a strategic role to play in NATO, of course. But how do you see Poland maneuvering in a very, very difficult environment where we see some countries, such as Slovakia and Hungary, diverging from the Brussels, uh, let's say the Brussels policy on Russia, and at the same time, Poland has a more favorable view to Slovakia and Hungary, and even Austria on mass migration. How does Poland, do this juggling act between those countries that follow the party line, if I may say, in Brussels, and those that take a little more of a different, sometimes even a very divergent view from what Brussels is trying to orchestrate on a European Union level?
Okay, so first of all, Michael, thank you for your question. And when it comes to that issue, I think that the first thing to emphasize is that we are currently live in a very unstable world. And when it comes to the Polish EU presidency, the work on this presidency has begun on 2023. It was during the term of our previous conservative government. And even at that time, it was considered that that was the year that was already so many things happened like around. But with the advent of the 2025, this year somehow leveled up this international relation, and this what is currently ongoing around to the next level. But when it comes to the main objectives of the Polish EU presidency, they were established to be mostly focused on the security, to focus on the support for Ukraine, to promote Polish view internationally and within the European Union, and to somehow trying to promote a visible approach towards the energy transformation, especially focusing on the nuclear energy. And there was like this, were this kind of the main objectives, but there was also this kind of the other objectives, like Poland wanted to show as this kind of the fully integrated country within the European Union. And this is the other case comparing our presidency to our first presidency that took place in 2011, when when that approach toward this presidency is mostly to show Poland as a new member state. But now Poland wants to show as a fully integrated state with the ambitions. But as we know, with the inauguration of the Donald Trump and with so many situations that are connected with that what is going overseas, with the ongoing peace negotiation with Ukraine, or the new tariffs that Trump wants to implement toward the European Union, this somehow puts Poland with our presidency in this kind of the state of the total international chaos. So this current approach, when it comes to the Polish presidency in the Council of the European Union, is more to somehow trying to manage to somehow resolve those problems. and to somehow try to create a frame that that the next presidency that will be taken by our friends from Denmark, to somehow create some framework that they will be able to work on those ongoing problems that we are currently are trying to work with. So our role is mostly to be a mediator or arbiter within the European Union, and it both it is visible domestically, because as you know we currently have this kind of the conflict between conservatives and the liberal, and within the European Union where the same problem is somehow level up on the continental level, because as you mentioned, we have now conservatives nation, we have liberals nation, and this is like not the same level that was a couple of years ago when we had mostly this huge liberal bloc of the country that decided whatever should go within the union, but now this percent is somehow going to 50-50 when it comes to the conservatives nation and the liberal one. So it's a time for the very hard presidency when we come.
It's a very challenging.
Yes, it's very
It's a very challenging environment. I just want to quickly mention I did work with the Polish the diplomacy in 2011, and Germany was very close relation. They had good relations, Poland with Germany. In this time around, in this sort of, if I may say in Polish, cirque małpy, this monkey circus in the European Union. Is it fair to say that Poland is juggling the transatlantic relationship with some difficulty, that the United States is now really the main guarantor of Polish security rather than Brussels? Would you agree with that? That Poland relies more on Washington than it does on Brussels for its current security in this unstable environment, and has perhaps not abandoned Brussels, but is much closer to the United States than it is to the European Union when it comes to its own security. Would you say that's a fair statement?
On the one hand, I would agree with you. On the other hand, no. It depends from which point we are looking when it comes to the relation with Brussels or with the Washington. The fact is that that a main guarantee of our security is the United States, because they guarantee our security with their army presence in Poland. But when it comes to the economic ties that are also very important, the ties are more connected with the European Union and with our partners within the European Union. So that also determines that that if Poland could be attacked by Russia, so it won't be so easy for, let's say, Paris or Berlin to just wash the hand in our case, because the economic ties are very deeply connected between our capitals. But when it comes to the military presence, it's definitely connected with the Washington.
Szymon, Polewka, you gave me a very accurate assessment there. Let's focus a little bit more on Central Europe to get back to sort of what I was alluding to about the divergencies in Central Europe. We see the Visegrad group is having its own internal squabbles. It doesn't seem like it's a very happy family. So my question to you is, if Hungary and Slovakia and Austria, they're not part of the Visegrad, but let's just stick with Hungary and Slovakia, if they diverge on the issue of Ukraine and Russia, where would Poland side? Would they side with Brussels, that is, continuously calling out Orban and Fico for being too cozy with Moscow? Where would they sort of gravitate? Would they try to show solidarity with the Visegrad four, Czechia, Slovakia, Hungary, and Poland. And of course, Poland is the biggest member, the most important. Or would they side with Brussels during this EU presidency?
Okay, it is like very hard to assess now because, as I mentioned, there's like so many things that are currently ongoing and so many these black swamps that it's even hard to see what the decision will policymakers do. But it's worth to mention that the Visegrad Group is a group that was created, and the main objective of the group was to join the European Union. It is the kind of the success that even when this objective was successfully done, the group is still operates, and even though now we have some different approach when it comes to some international matters, the group is still ongoing, but it is worth to remember that the group is still ongoing within the frame of the European Union. So for me, the fight, it's not like whether we should choose to be with the Visegrad Group or with the European Union, because the Visegrad Group is already an integral part of the European Union, with the objectives to even better integrate our countries within the frame of the European Union. But when it comes to the Polish geopolitical projects, we are currently working on the new project, and you know really well this project. It is a Free Seas initiative. So when it comes to the Polish diplomacy and policymakers, the push is more towards cooperating within the Free Seas initiatives right now, because it is more about the economic cooperation, about the creating a connection on the line south-north, not on the line west-east that used to be mostly developed within the old budget of the European Union. So our policy is now more focused on the Free Seas initiative. Even after the governmental change, I see that this initiative with its project is still ongoing.
Could you tell us more about the Three Seas initiative? Because I don't think many people are that familiar with it. I see it when I look at the globe here from the Baltics. I guess it stretches down to the Balkans. Many countries are in the EU already. Many countries are in NATO. Is it mainly an economic, supposedly a quasi-economic framework within the European Union? Is it supposed to coordinate energy policy? What are the main pillars that are supposed to support this three Seas initiative, Szymon, Polewka?
So, as you mentioned, it is mostly economical and also energy cooperation, but it is with the ingredient of the security, with the security too, because as I mentioned, the aim of the Free Seas initiative is to create a connection between the Free Seas countries, because as you know, and as I could refer to the Wallenstein theory, there is like this theory that called
I'm sorry to interject. The Three Seas. Sorry, are we talking the Baltics, the Adriatic Sea, and the Black Sea? Is that fair to say? The Three Seas.
We talk about this initiative that strengthen between the Baltic Seas, Black Seas, and Adriatic Sea. So that what we are talking about. And what I wanted to say that Wallenstein once said that the world is divided into the center and periphery. So we can also see it within the European Union that in the past the connection was more between the center that was located in the Benelux, France, Germany, and on the west of the continent, and our region was more treated as the periphery. And the Free Seas initiative somehow has an objective to move that center more towards our region, and to create the connection not only with the country from the center to periphery, but also within our country. So we had like this kind of project like a Via Baltica that is built between Bulgaria, Romania, Hungary, Slovakia, Poland, and then Baltic states. We also developed a rail connection, and also that rail connection is also somehow it's somehow also added to the NATO plans, because like this rail connection in the future is also intended to be used by the NATO military force when it comes to the army supply.
And before we get to transatlantic relations and the big enchilada, which is Ukraine and Russia, you just mentioned the NATO connection. Could you specify what is the security dimension of the Three Seas initiative? Um, would it create a kind of a NATO BIS or some sort of a military mini bloc to supplement the defense and security arrangement in Europe? Is that an objective?
Yes, so the most important thing is that major of the Three Seas Initiative country are the NATO Eastern flank country. So we have this kind of the common enemy, and as we know, nothing unites us a common enemy. So we have like this kind of the common view that is different from the view of the countries, like for instance, south flank of the NATO that are the Mediterranean country or the Nordic country. And that kind of the share view creates this base for the cooperation. But when it comes to the Three Seas initiative, it is mostly about creating an infrastructure for NATO, because like the NATO is the main administrator, and there is no objective of the Three Seas initiative to create this kind of the opposite organization towards the NATO, because when it comes to the security, the main organization that is taking care of that is NATO.
We'll stick to the the Three Seas initiative, excuse me, Szymon, Polewka. One more question about it. Mass migration is a huge issue in Europe. Many populist parties have gained tremendous support. I don't have to name them, I'm sure you do. In Poland, that's a big issue as well. Do the Three Seas initiative, or this collectivity of countries that seems to be at an embryonic stage and is perhaps going to crystallize into something, do they have a position on mass migration and how to protect the NATO EU space from illegal migration?
Yes, when it comes to our attitude, our attitude is like a very similar. There is no differences like between, let's say, Poland or Germany, because like most of our country are the bordering country, both of the European Union and even more Schengen area and NATO. So in our country, we have like this kind of the common push toward the security. And what's even more, most of our country has the heritage connected with the communism. And that's how determined that we had like this kind of the different view connected when it comes to our Western partners. I don't know how to say it, but I would say that we are kind of the immune when it comes to some policies that are implemented in the West, because when it comes to our sovereignties, like the full sovereignties, most of our country get sovereignty in the 90s. So we still have this this view to compare our current position to the position that was in the 80s and the 70s during the Soviet occupation and during the Eastern Bloc.
Let's get to transatlantic relations and Trump in one moment. There's talk, of course, in London, Paris recently, of sending some kind of a peacekeeping contingent, if you like, into Ukraine as a stabilization force. We've heard Prime Minister Tusk say adamantly, no, this is not going to go. But at the same time, we're hearing these discordant voices. Some are saying the French, well, we're going to go. The British are saying they're going to put boots on the ground and planes in the air. What exactly is the Polish position on this? Because they're the key country in all of this. will Poland eventually have to send some kind of a peacekeeping military contingent to try and stabilize what the Ukraine in the western part of the country?
So, as you already mentioned, the debate is still ongoing. But what you highlighted, both not only Tusk but also our conservative parties that also do not support the sending our troops to Ukraine, and I think that it won't be even well seen when it comes to our history, because as we know, Poland and Ukraine, we have. On the one hand, very beautiful shared history, but on the other hand, there were some difficulties, and there was also the time when the Second Republic had some land that currently are in the Ukraine, and during our First Republic also Ukraine was under the Polish crown. So I think that when it comes to our policy, it won't be even well seen in Ukraine to see our troops, because like maybe at the beginning it should be seen welcome, but who knows what the attitude of the Ukrainians will change in the future, whether there began to appear some anti-Polish sentiments. So when it comes to the countries like Germans, Brits, or French, they are not having this kind of the historical connection with the Ukraine. So I think that they would be just better seen there. And as we know, and what Zelensky is highlighting all the time, Ukraine is a guarantee of the securities. So when there is already mentioned that it's hard to achieve Ukraine being an integral part of NATO, so that troops of the NATO's country supposed to be somehow partial guarantee for the Ukraine. So I understand the push from the Ukrainian side for the absence, not the absence, but for some troops being present in Ukraine.
Yeah, if I may sort of just paraphrase the difficult history that the two countries have, there was friction in the past. Now there may be things they're patching some historical problems in together. But as you say, Poland has this historical baggage, and France and perhaps the Brits don't have it. So that's why they're more apt to go in. On the other hand, if one from a geopolitical perspective, we know that Poland is on the eastern flank and is the most sort of suitable candidate in terms of its location. But we'll see what happens. Let's go now to President Duda's visit to Washington. I'm sure we all saw that famous clip of him waiting outside the Oval Office to see President Trump. Could you give us a portrait, in your view? What are the dynamics of the relationship now between the Prime Minister Donald Tusk and Trump and President Duda, who I believe is not running for re-election? But how are the ties? Because there seems to be a hot and cold situation. Who has the better or the inside track with President Trump? Is it the President Duda or Prime Minister Tusk, in your view?
When it comes to the personal connection, it is of course our President Andrzej Duda, because we know how the dynamics of the relation between Trump and Duda looked like in the past, even during the first Trump's term in office and the Biden and during the Biden's administration time. But when it comes to Tusk, we know that our Prime Minister had some comments that were not were not very welcome from the Trump side. And as we see the dynamics of the current administration, Trump's administration, we see that the personal connections take take a crucial role when it comes to doing diplomacy with the US now. It is this kind of the traditional business to business approach. And as we know, Donald Trump is of course current president of the US, but he is also a businessman. So this is natural that some of his business approach went to the diplomacy and to the policy. So you mentioned about that Andrzej Duda was forced to wait for Donald Trump, but I would like to see that at the end he met him, and that was not the case of many of leaders of the European Union. So I think that it shows that he still have a position when it comes to the transatlantic contact with the US.
And Szymon Polewka, if you were with Duda's inner circle or one of his advisors, and you were in the Oval Office with the two presidents, what do you think they discussed during their one-on-one meeting? Was it security? Was it Polish American relations? How to strengthen them? Was it what Poland can do to stabilize Ukraine? What do you think was on the agenda of this meeting?
I think that the main topic was on Ukraine, and maybe that is a reason why it took why it was such a short meeting, because we know what is the current Trump position towards Ukraine, and we see that there is like lots of emotions that are connected with that topic. So I think that that is one of the reasons why this meeting was so short, because when it comes to the Polish security, I am pretty sure that when our president could speak with the Donald Trump, the meeting could be at least a little bit longer.
So could we say that the two men met and they came to some kind of agreement on what to do about a post-war Ukraine, or were there divergences between Poland and the United States on the future of Ukraine?
I think that that as we mentioned, the time and that this meeting was so short, it somehow determined that there shouldn't be like kind of the huge deals when it comes to the Ukraine. I think that it was more the discussion about the current states and mostly kind of the try of the push from the Duda side to support Ukraine, because we see that he personally supports Ukraine like during his presidency a lot. So I think like that was the main topic.
Let's stick with the transatlantic relations and relate NATO to it. Poland is outstanding in its contribution to NATO as a military force. A lot of equipment is supplied by the United States to refurbish its army. It's mobilized a substantial amount of troops. It's paying more than it's due, unlike Canada or other countries which are laggards in their contributions to NATO. So what do you think, Szymon Polewka, is Poland's role in NATO? Is it to be a kind of the model army of the future, or is Poland going to play a very defensive role in protecting Europe? Now that Trump is saying that he doesn't know if the U.S. commitment to NATO will continue, and they're talking about a European army. Will Poland remain the big powerhouse, military powerhouse, regardless of what happens to NATO, and even if the United States starts to disengage from that military alliance?
Yes, so when it comes to our policy regarding NATO, so I think like that is already this kind of the huge success, that because of our attitude towards the military spending, we became this kind of the model to another European country, and I see lots of very positive comments when it comes to the Polish attitude. And I think that this is kind of our main policy to not only talk about the security issue, but also to show how we can solve those problems and to do lots of military projects that could be follow in other European countries, like this kind of the Wisła Narew missile umbrella that somehow is built on the similarity with the Israeli missile defense system. So there is like huge spending, military spending that is currently going in Poland, and that military spending it's not only connected, Polish military spending, it's not only connected with the Polish military security and Polish security, but also with the security of our neighbors. Because as you mentioned, I've seen like a lot of debates about that Poland became this kind of the new powerhouse and new superpower when it comes to the military. So globally, I don't think that maybe it is a huge case, because we are still this kind of the middle country that is located in the center of the Europe. But when it comes to the Central European Union, I think that at this point it is a case that we are becoming this kind of the leader. And I think like it's a better term to call ourselves not a superpower, but just a leader that try to also protect our neighbors. And there is like a lot of initiative that, for instance, our neighbors Slovakia, when they send and when they save an aviation to Ukraine and old planes, Poland took a responsibility to have aviation patrol within the Slovakia borders. And we also see another initiation from the Polish side that, for instance, recently there was like a lot of comments about a new lead-port energy connection that took place from the Baltic state to the European Union and European power grid. So Poland also took a responsibility for protecting that lead-pole energy connection, especially in the Suwałki region. So to sum up, I think that the main objective is with our action and with our military spending to show that this idea has a future, and that is spending is for something and not only to waste public money, because the security problems not only connected with the Russia, but the security problems that are currently are ongoing in Europe are much deeper. So we need to have a well-developed military force to somehow deal with that security issues.
Okay, and on a technical level, then I want to discuss a little bit a broader issue related to Poland, but just on a technical level, when we talk about arms purchases and procurement, unfortunately, there was, I covered a bit of the NATO expansion, when I was younger, like you were, and I noticed that when it came to procurement, there were some issues as to pricing, and that the military expenditures were a little bit overpriced. Is there a verification process when Poland is purchasing its new weapons so that costs don't explode? Szymon, Polewka?
Yes, there's of course this verification process, and I think like the best verification process is a democratic, the democratic rules that are going in our country, because we had a democratic change in our when it comes to our government. 1.5 years ago we had election. Now we have a liberal coalition. So yes, they took like the huge effort to count like each penny when it comes to military spending. So I think like that is the best democratic mechanism, that just when the governance change, they are just taking care of whether the money were spent correctly. But of course our our main strategy is not to focus on one military shop, because we know that we have some countries that specialize in the military industries, mostly US, Germany or France,
South
Russia.
Korea, maybe.
South Korea
South Korea.
also, South Korea also, that was something that I wanted to refer, and also Russia. But in our case, like Russia is maybe not the best partner to deal with now, and also China. But China is not also really seen as a worth partner to deal with now. So we are currently focused both on the deals with Americans, and here we have like this double security guarantees, because at the other hand we buy their military equipment, and it somehow gets us even in the better position, because it's kind of the business that we are doing in with US, especially when it comes to the trans business to business approach, get us even in the better position. And other natural, maybe not for so many people, but other natural kind of the direction when it comes to the military cooperation is Korea. It is especially because we have like a similar geopolitical position with Korea. We are in this kind of the similar geopolitical trap, because when you will look to our history, the Polish history and the Korean history is like a very similar. We are both trapped between superpowers that historically were fighting mostly on our land. So that main history and background creates an even better environment for the military cooperation.
It draws the two countries together, no doubt, their historical experiences, South Korea and Poland. And finally, on the defense spending side, Germany raised some eyebrows recently, Szymon, Polewka, when they announced, I think, a $500 billion defense fund to increase their armament production or their defense spending. We know there are also some historical frictions between France and Germany and Poland. What was the reaction, if any, since you're based in Warsaw? Was there any reaction to this sudden announcement that Germany is prepared to maybe outdo Poland in its defense spending role?
Honestly, I've seen so many this announcements from the Germany side that it's even hard to comprehend. For me, it was already this kind of the Scholz announcement that is a Zeitungswendung, and that now Germany will spend more money on military equipment, and it already went a couple of years from that Zeitungswendung his speech, because it was like a kind of the immediate after the full-scale Russian invasion on Ukraine. And as I know, the German Bundeswehr and German army still lacks a lot of equipment issue when it comes to proper function, to proper working of their military force. Because when it comes to the scale, like, you know, Polish economy and the German economy is like a totally two different scales. So we take it like this kind of the well and good news that Germany is, let's say, ready to take responsibility for their defense. But when it even comes to that $400 billion, when it comes to the scale of the German economy, it is not the crucial amounts that could change Bundeswehr into the main military actor. And that is, I think, like one of the main problems with our Western friends and colleagues from Germany, that they can't decide whether they want to be a leader in the European Union and whether they want to be. But if they want to take a full leadership of the European Union, the leadership shouldn't be only based on the economy, but should also be based on the common security dialogue.
And if one reads into that, of course, this talk of burden sharing between, let's say, members of a European army, or if NATO continues, that's going to be probably an issue in the future. How much does each country contribute, and how do they get along in order to who's going to be primus inter pares, the top dog among the other top dogs? That's going to be an issue. And finally, Szymon, Polewka, let's go to the top of the world, the Arctic. I know that Poland has its own backyard, and Ukraine, and of course the Baltic states, but President Trump made an interesting announcement about annexing possibly Greenland. Now, everybody thought that was a kind of a joke, but we know that there's rivalry between the United States and perhaps its strategic competitors, China and Russia, for control over the Arctic sea routes. Can Poland play any role in maybe not like the Scandinavians, but what is Poland's position on who will eventually control that key strategic area, which is the polar circle, the Arctic, on top of the world? How does Poland fit into this as after all a shipbuilding country, a seafaring country? What position do you think they have when it comes to the Arctic, and who controls it?
So I think that when it comes to this case connected with the Greenland, from our perspective, whether the Denmark and the European Union or US will will be in charge of Greenland. Both countries are our alliance, so there won't be like this kind of the drastic change that, let's say, China or Russia will take Greenland. But we still in Poland believe in the international institutions and in the alliance with our colleagues from other countries, especially within the NATO. So whatever change will happen in Greenland, the Greenland will still remains within the NATO alliance. So from our case, the change won't be this kind of so visible, and our main objective is to focus on the eastern flank, because that is something what threaten directly our sovereignty. So, and that is also our position to talk about the issues that are going on the eastern flank. I think that when it comes to the northern flank of the NATO, there are the other countries that are more into promoting that kind of the views, and that are more Scandinavian countries and Canada.
And finally, can we make? I can't resist going back to my journalist days to ask you for a prediction about the Polish elections. We have, I guess, we have the Law and Justice Party candidate, and then there's the Civic Platform candidate. Could you give us, Szymon, Polewka, your take on how you think the elections may go, the upcoming presidential elections in Poland?
Honestly, from my point of view, I think that it will go in the very similar direction that happened 2 cadences ago. So it was, I think, where there was this election that there was fight between Komorowski and Duda, and at that time, lots of people considered that Komorowski will win, and all the polls showed that Komorowski has the biggest support, but at the end, Duda became.
Sorry, could you specify for our audience Komorowski's party, please? What affiliation did he have?
Okay, Bronisław Komorowski was affiliated with the Civil Platform, so that party that is connected with our current Prime Minister Donald Tusk. So he was mostly a liberal candidate, and Andrzej Duda was the candidate of the PiS Conservative Party, and at the end, Andrzej Duda has won the election. And I see like this kind of the very similar pattern, because when it comes to the previous presidential election, it was somehow easier to predict who will win, because like Andrzej Duda had a huge support from a Polish countryside. And like currently, when I looked for the candidates, there was like very unsure thing that can happen during this election campaign. And what is even more interesting, because of all of these things that currently are ongoing worldwide, even in Polish public discourse, the election is not so visible, because like the people talks about the Ukraine, about what is going with the Trump's administration. So I think like it's something was specified that election. I would say like the month ago, I would say that we will have a second round, and in that the second round we will have again liberal Trzaskowski candidate and a conservative Nawrocki candidate. But when it comes to the recent poll, there was kind of the black swan that appeared, and with his name Sławomir Mencen, and some polls showed that Mencen could somehow get into the second term and overrun peace candidates. So that already showed up that this election is very uncertain. And even though liberal candidate Rafał Trzaskowski has, or like right now, the biggest support, he still lacks support in the Polish countryside. And I think like at the end, the countryside will choose.
That's the key, isn't it?
Yes,
that's the key to winning.
That the people from the countryside will choose who became a president.
And just very briefly, we saw what happened with Romania, with Georgescu, when the right candidate does not win. If somebody who's not pro-EU, very pro-EU, they might have problems. Do you think that could possibly happen in Poland, that if we have another law and justice president, that Brussels may get a little bit upset about it and maybe do something that would be untoward towards Warsaw, or would they accept the results and as being legitimate and not try to question the results if a less than pro-EU president is elected?
I think like that at the end the result will be accepted, because in the past I've seen like so many try to not accept the results in Poland, but at the end it ends up within our domestic debate. But when it comes to the both mainstream candidates, so when it comes to the peace candidate and civic coalition candidate, they are both they somehow different in details, but at the end both of the candidates, they are pro-EU. I know that there is this kind of the picture that the conservatives in Poland are this kind of the very anti-EU and populism, and there was like this other label connected with them. But I think like at the end, when it comes to the approach, then they are not having this kind of the policy that we're supposed to leave European Union or any other controversial topics that should be raised by their side. So at the end, I think that as it took place so many times, the result will be just accepted.
Well, Szymon Polewka, thank you for your insights. It looks like it's going to be a very exciting Polish presidency. Poland has to be a bit of a lion tamer and get everybody to coordinate during this Polish presidency. It certainly will be a very challenging one, but a very, very important one for Poland. Thank you for giving us your strategic and global overview. It was a great pleasure to talking with Szymon Polewka, an expert at the Warsaw Institute, and it will be great to have you back again in the near future. Thank you so much, Szymon.
I would like to also thank you very much, and pleasure from my side.